Chris here at TT120. We got a real treat for you guys today. We're going to have a bit of a chit chat on Let's Talk TT, and Mac's feeling a little bit rough, but he will say hello in a moment. But we've got the co-hosts of MRP Model Rail Replacement Podcast. Now, why them? Well, because they've both had, or now will be having, something to do with TT. So I thought this is an opportune moment to actually get these guys on board, so you can hear what they're talking about, and then go check out their channels. And also, while you're at it, go check out the MRP podcast as well, because it is reasonably amusing. There's Mac dying for you, and Zoom's found that more interesting than me. Anyway, let's start off with the host of the MRP, and he's got a YouTube channel called Western Signalman. James, would you like to say hello?
Hello, guys. Yeah, thanks for having us on. I do like you've got it correct there. I am the host. Whenever AI is asked about MERP, he always says I'm the co-host, which is incorrect. So I'm hoping to get that technology updated. So the more we reference that, the better that'll be.
It does seem to be a very important point for you. I'm not quite sure if there's been some rub there in the background, but we'll move on. Sam, as the co-host and producer of MRP, you say hello and tell us something a little bit about yourself and about your channel.
Hello, I'm Sam. I'm from the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, and I am the co-host and producer, second to James of Western Signalman. My channel started off as a little Warhammer channel, so that hence the name, because that's usually one of the big questions that gets asked. I was too lazy to change it when I moved over to trains. And now I do model railways with a speciality in weathering, is what I like to assume by the name anyway.
Yeah, and Emperors Path is the name, as people can see in the bottom of your screen there. You're also known as SBJ, aren't you?
I am. There's far too many Sams in this train world, so I thought SBJ was a better option, or at least more findable or traceable.
You mean Sam's Trains was taken?
Yeah, Sam's Trains was taken.
Yeah. And before we get into the questions, Mac, just for the newbies, do you want to say hello and tell them who you are and why you're here? Because you're sort of like my producer, aren't you?
Well, I wouldn't claim any such bold statement as that. I'm here allegedly to add some gravitas, much needed, I think, some of this to Peachy's productions. But I am Greg from Mac Trains, and we're looking forward to this very much.
Excellent. Yeah, I don't know if you two, Sam and James, whether you know, but we're sometimes in some quarters referred to as Mac and Cheese. I think they just keep him Mac and I'm supposed to be the cheesy one, which I've got over. I'm okay. Right. So what I want to start this little chat about is MRRP, the Model Rail Replacement Podcast. Something that I have only found relatively recently, about 3 or 4 months ago, and I was introduced to it by Tom Marshall from Puggles Kelly and his twin Tim Boogles Kelly. Now, he said I wouldn't be wasting my time if I listened to you guys, because actually some of your stuff is pretty good, and I agree. And some of it actually, occasionally, is amusing too. So, how did that all come about? You guys doing a podcast?
That was just over a year ago now. So I think it's all started off. I had a Hornby Class 50 with I discovered a cracked chassis, and I mentioned that I just wasn't very happy with it. And Sam just very spontaneously went, "Oh, I'll have it off you." So we made a bit of a deal, and he had a Class 50 from me in exchange for some weathering service. And eventually, when he weathered the wagons, he said, "I'm in the area. Do you want to come pick them up?" So I was like, "Yeah, sure, okay." So we organised a time and date and pub to meet at, and sort of go there and sort of just have a bit of a sort of gym wag. And so I mentioned to my wife I was going to meet someone off the internet, and I may be murdered. And if so, don't go looking in those drawers. I went to the pub, and Sam never showed up. and it was quite rude of him. He forgot to mention that it was actually the day after that we were supposed to meet, and so foolishly I'd arrived a day early. So we tried again the next day, and just sat down, got talking all things model railway, what we liked, and sort of other YouTubers that we'd met, and we realised we sort of kind of knew the same people, sort of thing. And then during the conversation, it just come up, and I said, I've been looking at maybe doing a podcast, and Sam was like, well, actually, that's not a bad idea. I've kind of been thinking about sort of doing the same thing. And that's sort of how it really began. We sort of then started throwing ideas, what we could do, how we could get around it. And I think about 2 months later, we actually sat down and recorded episode 0 as a tester, which was just awful. It sounded awful. I think some describe it as sounded like I'm sat in a bog. I used a microphone. It was supposedly a podcasting microphone, but I don't know why. Whenever we used it for the podcast, it just put this horrendous echo behind it. So I go microphone free now and just rely on the MacBook to pick all things up. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. Really, it's we just felt there wasn't really that much out there. I think Rail Stuff had done a few episodes, but I think Adam had become so busy with becoming a dad. I just don't think he had the time for it, and there wasn't really anything else British modelling out there, really.
Because there are a few people doing sort of live streams and and video chats like me and Mac have been doing for a little while now on this little series. But you're right, there's not much of an actual UK based podcast, something you can find via Spotify or. Am I allowed to mention iTunes? Because you're not very happy with them at the moment, are you? Apple or whatever it is that. Sam,
it's me. So it's not that we're not happy with it; it's that it chooses which episodes it wants to play, and it's different for every single person. I think James and I probably shared quite a few sweary voice notes with each other within the first sort of month or so, because no matter what we seemed to do, we'd think we'd fix the issue. And someone would say, "Oh, it's not working for me," but all of the stats that Spotify were giving us were telling us that people were listening to it on Apple. So we just physically couldn't work it out. So we've just always made a joke of it now. But unfortunately, Apple just seems to not like certain episodes of ours, depending on who it goes out to.
Oh wow, okay. It's been well received, though, hasn't it? It seems to be. Didn't you have some sort of excuse me? Some sort of top 40 hit or something before Christmas.
Makes it sound like we had a Christmas #1, which actually I kind of wish we did have. James, do you want to spill the beans on this one?
You get the stats just about 1st of December, isn't it? They came out.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah, and it told us the how well the podcast had done for the year. And in it, we'd actually hit the top 30 UK podcast chart, and that's not within our own genre of hobbies and interests. This was the UK, so we hit the top 30 with the likes of James Acaster and Ed Gamble's food podcast, and all the various footballer podcasts and things like that. We weren't there for very long, but we did get there.
We did.
Any idea why that's just a blip, or was everybody else rubbish that week? or did you have a particular topic that actually resonated with people, and so you got a lot more listens?
I mean, maybe one of the most popular ones we done was the burnout episode and mental health, which had some really good feedback and probably was one of the sort of turning points for the podcast, the people to take notice of and become interested in it. Because we don't take it too seriously. We're not expert modelers. We're not au fait in all details of railway. We do get things wrong. Sam's completely oblivious to the fact that the North exists. But we just try to make it fun. But that episode was a serious episode, and I think it made people feel that they were not alone in feeling that way. And I think it was common because I think the idea sort of sprung up from you watch the likes of Underground Eric. Eric will disappear for a couple of months every now and again, and he sort of admits in his videos he's had a bit of burnout and he's taken a break away. And there's a few other people I've noticed had been doing that. I think Tris at Double O'Neill had been taking a break as well, and so I felt it was probably a good subject to cover. And it's more.
I must admit it's one of my favourites. After the Peachy episode, and before the Buggles Kelly episode, and then you've got a lot of other really good ones where you interview people. I'm not so bothered, although I don't mind listening to it while I'm ironing or mowing the lawn. When you have your Fight Club stuff about what's the best Deltic, when everyone knows that it's not the blue one.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I think in your new format, are you giving that a bit of a break, a bit of a breather?
Yeah. We sort of, I think Fight Club was done. We sort of run through it, and it kind of fell apart when it got to the point where I refused to do Sam's homework. So,
which was a regular thing that was mentioned. Like, Sam, you don't know what you're talking about. You not read your notes. No.
First three Fight Clubs, I think I'd done the research for Sam, and then it got to the fourth one, and I just didn't have time. I'd barely done my own, so I sort of left him to it, and it kind of fell apart from there. And from that point, I realised it was just funny to let him not have any notes and make him do his own research. And every Fight Club, I knew I'd win because I knew he wouldn't have done his homework properly, and.
Yeah, like he would call. I know there was one thing, but I can't remember if he'd picked something that wasn't a multiple unit or something, or other, or wasn't mixed traffic, or I don't know.
I think it was like the wagons, the rolling stock episode where we like had to pick from a particular period, and he picked some narrow gauge wagons for a modern era period, and I had to point out that they were built in like 1889, something like that.
Not 1999. Right. Okay. So we've pushed MRRP.
Yeah.
There will be links below for everyone. Please do wherever you get your podcast from. Although if you don't bother with Spotify or iTunes, you two have now set up a specific YouTube channel where you don't see anything. You just get the MRRP logo, but you can just listen to the episode via that, can't you?
Yeah. You just play it in the background whilst you're working on your model railway. That's sort of
100%. Yeah. So that'll be in the links in the description below as well. Right. What me and Mac really want to, while we've got you in front of camera, I know that everybody here wants to talk to the young pup about his new exciting Skeletric set. But what we want to do is first of all, Mac and I want to acknowledge that you were one of the founding YouTube fathers for TT, because you brought out that, you made that fantastic little I don't know if it was a TMD or something, but it was a little hunting thing, and we were all fascinated by your office interior that nobody, even yourself, would ever see. But also the fact that you were doing things like you were having to not just scratch build to an excellent standard, but you were using other scales equipment to try and do something. You're using, I think, 00 gauge fencing to try and represent a tall security fencing, and you were using. Max, did you want to cut in on that?
But just before we get into the details of what you did, that decision to take up TT120 in the first place would be good to find out from you.
Okay, yeah,
because that itself was.
Well, I was getting round to it.
You weren't. You'd have been another 10 minutes before we get there. I know you. So just cut to the chase here, man. Right?
We might just leave this bit in. So okay, all right. So I'm going to hand over to Mac then. Off you go, Mac.
Yeah, just you took up TT120 when there was really nothing on YouTube at that point doing it, and it had a rocky reception in many ways, the idea of this, first of all. So what inspired you to actually take it up in the first place?
It's I've always liked the 3mm TT layouts that were at exhibitions. I can't remember the names of either of them because they're gone rubbish with names. There's one that's sort of set in Devon, and they have like a warship and a few other sort of Western diesels running on it. And I really like that one. I remember seeing it at Ali Pali. And there's another one's quite a long one. It's sort of third rail unit based, and it's just the size of those models just always just look quite right to me. It's something about it. I think I just like models that size. I think that's why I quite like 009 as well, because when I compare 009 next to TT, they're roughly the same height. So it must be something in that range, sort of thing. But yeah, it just feels like it would fit better, particularly my space in this garage here. If I really wanted to make a go of it again as a large layout, I could get something that I wanted rather than struggle with the constraints of OO and the size of that. So yeah, I was quite excited when TT was announced, and I was like, well, I'm going to buy some stuff. I'm going to have a go at it. I think I got caught up in the hype of it and sort of the announcements of, we got the 08 coming and then the 66s are coming and this is coming. I was like, oh, brilliant, right, excellent. Well, I'll put my orders in, and then I should know better that these dates will slip and slip and slip. Yeah. And it was kind of so I went into that layout, and then as the 66s got further and further away, my interest waned and I needed something else to do, and that's sort of where the TT sort of stopped. But I still kept the bits because I was like, I couldn't bring myself around to selling it. I just thought, no, I'm going to come back to this at some point. I just think I need to be a bit more patient with it and wait for the bits I need.
So is that truly the reason why I think after episode 6 you'd done what most of us hadn't done at that point, and that was have a reasonably well detailed finished layout, but you just didn't have any rolling stock other than a William Whitelaw, which wasn't appropriate for it, and some Mark Ones, and then you just thought, right, okay, I'm just going to pause. So you haven't left TT, you just put it on the shelf.
Yeah,
so
I enjoyed it, and it was fun, and like you say, there's definitely the challenge of finding parts to make it look the right scale. Like you say, I'd used the 00 gauge fence and sprayed it up silver and then made it look like palisade fencing. I think it was like originally Great Western Railway Station fencing. And taking N-gauge brickwork and just about getting away to convince that it's the right scale to build a bridge. And I think the challenge in there was quite fun, but it was getting to the point that, I've got nothing to run on this. So I was like, I want to do something else, and I will come back to it. So it all just got boxed up.
We owe you another thanks, actually, because you did what we've seen time and time again. You poked the tiger. You woke up the sod's law, which is basically you scratch built a service pit, and which meant obviously that only a few months later, Western Wagon Works produced a service pit kit, and then of course you did the same thing with. I think you made the fuel storage out of toilet roll tubes or something, or was it something like that? Cardboard tubes.
Kitchen foil tubes are they're perfect size for modelling.
That's it. And it wasn't like it was a year later. There's some scenic Bachmans around. They've arrived. So I want you to come back and start making some other stuff that hasn't been around yet. Because as soon as you finish them, something will turn up. It's like we know that the blue and grey Mark Ones are going to be in the next announcement because Sam's resprayed his Mark Ones in blue and grey.
That's what I'm hoping for.
That's brilliant. So, but you haven't completely let go of TT, have you? Because the boy, your son, you've got something planned for him, haven't you?
Yeah. So we have gone through, I think, all the common gauges, trying to find him something that suits and fits in his bedroom. And I built him an 00 gauge layout a few years ago. And it's fine for the smaller hands. It was the more robust models. It didn't really matter if they got knocked and bits broke off. They weren't expensive. And he was only, I think, 5 at the time when I built him that layout. But it was too big. It took out the rest of the bedroom, and if he wanted to play with any other toys in there, he couldn't really. He'd have to sit under the layout, and so it wasn't practical. And as he got bigger, I was like, well, look, you've proved yourself that you can look after your models. We'll try N-Gage. And we built him a little end-to-end layout, and he really enjoyed it. It was sort of like a station terminus. There's a turntable and all the bits in there. So we sold all the OO stuff, bought the N-Gage stuff. But the problem with N-Gage is that the older models don't run great. There's nothing really new that's robust enough. I think the best model we picked up was a 9400 GWR tank engine, which was China built, but the old Paul tooling, so it was like a metal die cast body. One of the best ones we've ever got, and I think we picked up off Tony's trains for 35 quid. But he sold all these other OO stuff, and then he'd go and buy some other second-hand models, like a few Daypol steam engines, and they've all broke over time. And it's not because he hasn't taken care of them. I just don't think they're that great a model, and it kind of frustrated him and put him off the hobby a bit. And so it got to coming up to his birthday this year, and as I said, I hadn't sold my TT stuff. I still had a train set at the back of the room, and I was like, well, you know what, let's try TT, because I think it was it seems it wouldn't be too big for his bedroom. I think it'd be better quality than the N-Gage stuff that we were being able to buy, and he seemed keen on the idea, so I thought, well, let's try this. So I gave him the
if they're keen, you jump on it, don't you?
Yeah. So gave him the Easterner set. Someone sorted me out for a Northeastern brake fan as well. So
I wonder who that was. Hang on to that. They're worth a weight in gold, son.
That's it. Yeah, we can exchange you for a Loco, this man.
Can I ask then as well, because you said you had some ideas about train sets, TT train sets. You would think be good to see Hornby taking up. What would your line be on that? What should they be? What are they missing a trick on just now, would you say?
An uncoupler. Just a little uncoupler tool, because that's the one thing he gets frustrated with, is that he puts the train together and he wants to take it apart, and he'll usually go and get a knife from the kitchen. And obviously when he does that with the HM7000 stuff, he then shorts the track. So a nice simple uncoupler in there, I think, is what Hornby need to put in their train sets, particularly the little branch line one that's coming.
I think Mac's about to do a sales plug.
I am indeed. I've got one here. I don't know if I have or not, but exactly that. No, I haven't got one to hand. Well, I want printed off, but I did the same thing exactly, because it just drove me nuts. The ability to unhook them easily was not straightforward. So I designed a wee 3D printed one. So I'll send one down to you.
Brilliant.
Let me know if you think it's up too much, but it does the job. It's not fancy. It's just a wee hook, basically, but it does the job.
That's it.
I'm a massive convert to Hunt couplings. Using, I think they're almost the same size as the N-Gage one, but they use the same N-Gage NEM pocket as TT120. And particularly, I've been taking my little layout has gone to quite a few shows this year. It's been a bit of a surprise, but I'm constantly being asked that it's so much easier to pack up, and it's so much, when you're moving stock around, trying to lift them up and use your thumbs to push those things, it's just, and then they get twisted and they get bent, and then they won't locate again. So I've jumped with my long stock that's not going to be shunted. It's all been swapped out to magnets.
Yeah, I think that's the best way. It's just they're just a little bit too fiddly. I think that's the only sort of trouble he has with them. But otherwise, I think it's great. I think HM7000 is a game changer for it as well. He basically I gave him that train set, and I didn't buy. I think it was just a standard analog one when I got it. But my dad picked up a few of the decoders the other week because obviously they'd all been put on sale to about £34 or whatever it was. He bought them and then realised that they weren't actually any good for any of his engines. So he essentially sold them to Lenny, and we put one in the A4, and that was it. He's hooked on it. Got the iPad out and got it running, and he's so happy with that. And I think that's one of the best things Hornby can offer with TT is that HM7000 and that app.
At this point, I just want to say that Martin Weaver hasn't paid us to make James say that. and if he does listen to this, he's going to love that stuff.
But yeah, that's it. He has fun with it now. He really enjoys it, and he's so much more. I mean, today, I sent you that photo. He's been chomping at the bit for me to get him a layout sorted, and he expects me to just be able to cut some wood and have it all up in a couple of hours. And I was like, hang on, no, we need to plan this and work this out, because I think the one downside is the lack of turntable. Obviously you can get the very expensive ones, but he doesn't have the pocket money for that. No. And the locos don't have, the A4 and A3 have no coupling on the front. I sort of said to him, look, we're going to have to look at something which has got a turnaround loop on it, so we can run an engine out and turn it round and put it back on the train. So for now, we've just got a couple of sheets of foam board from Hobbycraft. I cut a few of the strips like a framework and then glued 2 boards on top. Took the track from the 2 train sets that he's got, because he went and bought another one with a bit of his birthday money. And we've got a little simple loop of track and a couple of sidings, and he's been playing with that all afternoon for hours. Well happy with it. And he said, oh, this could be my train set. So that was it. He was quite happy with that. So I don't mind, because that saved me building a proper one.
I do feel the Triple X sound system they've got, although some people might think it's not as good as the high-end stuff, I think it is more than capable of actually giving you a really good package of sounds. You stick it on the automatic function control, and so when your lad turns direction, it doesn't just stop and fly back. It does the appropriate slowing down, does all the brake squealing, and makes all the nice noises and all the toot toots, and then off she goes again. And every time I do it, it puts a grin on my face, and I'm 56. So.
That's it. His favourite one's the bagpipes.
No, yeah, well, the Scotland the Brave on the Flying Scotsman. Yeah. I like to put that on anything. So I have, because that's the other fun thing about these decoders, is that you just go into your app and you can you can put a different sound file on. For a while I had a little German EMU, and I didn't have a sound file, and I'd hardwired an 8-pin into it, and I'd painted it up as in northern colours, just as a bit of a giggle, really. And I thought, this, I haven't got a sound file for it, but I put a 66 on it, and it just sounded tremendous as this thing falls out the platform. And then you get bored and you put the Scotsman one on, so you can have Scotland the Brave as it goes around. It doesn't make any sense to anybody else but ourselves, because we're amusing ourselves, and that's the most important bit, I think.
That's it.
Good man.
Right, so unless Mac, have you got any more questions for the Western Signalman?
No, I think happy. That's been great to hear that. Thanks for your input there. Really appreciate that, James. I think it's great to hear young folks just like that with the HM7000. They just take off with it. They know what to do with it. They'll play around with the app to their heart's content, and I'm sure that you'll have to get on with building a proper layout for the lad as well than just a phone board. So he won't let you stop for that for long, I'm sure.
No.
I was going to check. You were waiting on the 66. Have you seen a 66 now? Have you got one, or did you look at one, or what did you think of it when it did come out?
I did see them at probably the Great Electric Train Show. It's probably the first time I saw them when they're running around on Hornby Magazine's layout. I mean, they look fabulous, absolutely fabulous. I think they are on par with the Acura Scale 00 ones, with the advantage being that they've got the correct scale wheels.
Yeah.
But I since changed, as I quite often do, because like Sam, the only difference being that I'm officially diagnosed is with my ADHD, I jump from one idea to the other. But I have been stockpiling stuff for, and eventually a West Highland based layout, because that 37 large logo, I was like, I could do something with that, and I think I could get, and it wouldn't require a massive amount of stock. I think if I've managed to obtain some TTA wagons off someone. I've picked up a few coaches, so yeah, I've got the 37 in mind. I've got that Hellion Class 122.
Yeah.
Because they still ran around in the 80s as a Sandite unit. One of them did, so intention of making it like that. And yeah, I'm going to try.
What's a Sandite unit?
So it's in the autumn when the old leaves come down on the track. You usually see them now with either the MPVs or a couple of 66s with the blue tanks in the middle, and they're absolutely covered in filth. So they used to run the DMUs as Sandite units to keep the rails grippy during leakfall.
Excellent. So just without being too bipartisan, are you now firmly sitting over on the 009 and TT side of modelling?
Yeah, I'd say so. I picked up some other things in OO because I want to do something Era 2 that I've got in mind. But it's definitely, the 009 is definitely the main concentration at the moment. But I am waiting for that 37, and then I may probably make a start in TT then. But yeah, for the moment, it's the 009 build. So I'm trying to work my way through that.
I know there's a lot of people who do tend to sort of fix to a scale, but I don't think you're in such a minority when it comes to people who like to model in scales that are appropriate to the thing that they want to model. You know, you don't. From the short time I've known you, you don't seem to be the sort of person who goes, right, I'm going to spend the next 7 years building this monster layout. You're right. I want to do this. You have an idea that looks pretty. I'm going to make this. Bing. You go, oh, I've had another idea. I'm going to make this.
Yeah.
But that's you get your enjoyment from that, don't you?
Yeah, that's the kind of modelling I like to do. And I've sort of, I think, I don't think we said in the podcast, but I had a conversation with Sam. Was like, I come to the realization that trying to build the layout around the garage is too big for my concentration levels. I'll get to a certain point and I'm bored with it, and I've realised I just need to work on smaller layouts and smaller models where I can focus my concentration. And instead of just ripping it all up and then starting again, I can actually just store it away and then start on something else and then come back to that when I feel like it. So that's sort of the way I'm going to move forward, which is sort of with the 009, I'm building that in sections. So I'm only working on one module board at the moment, and I'll probably then, once I've done that one, I'll probably square that away for the time being, move on to a different project, which will probably be the TT West Highland one. Once I've got a bit of that done, or so far that, I don't know, maybe I'll come back to the 009, or I might move to the Era 2 idea I've got.
And of course, the best way for people to find out when you start that Western Highland thing is them to subscribe to your channel, isn't it? The Western Signalman.
That's it, indeed. Yeah, subscribe to Western Signalman. And whilst you're waiting, you can enjoy all my lovely dulcet tones as I narrate the various model railway exhibitions that I go to. So,
and I'll have to admit, I mean, I've tried to emulate your style for my club channel. I do like the way you do it's always great to have nice photographs, nice videos of people's layouts on shows, but when all you hear is, I don't know, people jabbering in the background and there's or piped in lounge music, it kind of does turn me off. But it's great when you narrate. I presume you're reading the show notes, but also you're giving a little bit more information, invariably whether or not a signal's wrong. Or whether someone's run through a red, but also, it just comes across really nice and interesting. I think the only thing I could ever, out of watching your videos, I think the only thing I could suggest as an improvement is turn the music down when you're talking, especially when you're playing your mixed jazz and
it's another one that I don't know why it does it. It's when I use iMovie as the editor, and I will put it together and it will sound fine. And 8 times out of 10, it will process the video and it'll be fine. And every so often it will, for some reason, make the volume of the music really, really loud. And it's not till it's published on YouTube and everyone's going, I can't hear you. It's like, well, it's too late now, because if I take it down and put it back up again, I lose all the viewing numbers. So that's it. It stays as it is. But yeah, it's sort of an unusual one. But yeah, I mean, the narration, that started from the fact that we used to go to the shows, I was recording them, and then Lenny was, I think, even maybe 2 or 3 at the time when I used to take him along, because he's been obsessed with trains ever since he discovered the box of Thomas engines that his sister had. And
I knew he'd get it in. Thomas. Go on, sorry.
So yeah, he'd come to the shows, but I used to he'd be holding him in my arms, and then he'd be watching the engines, or as he got bigger, he'd be on a stool. But he'd talk over the entire footage of what he could see, and I put the video together, and I was like, I need to cover this up somehow, because as much as I love him, I don't think other people are going to appreciate him talking all over the video, and that's where the narration come from. And I mean, people do like to hear him in the background. I think I've only had one person made a comment where it's like, "Oh, good video, except for that annoying child in the background." And I did sort of point out, well, he is my son. He does have to come round with me. So
we all know you can't please them all.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Enough of you. You keep your tidy beard quiet now. We're going to go to Scruffy Beard and Sam. What we want to talk to you about, obviously, what everyone else is now. Well, I think we've stretched out my viewing time long enough. What they really want to see is the Sam SBJ talk to us about. I've jokingly called it Emperors Paths because there's quite a few lanes. I think James has called it a Scalextric set, which is possibly a little bit harsh, but then you're friends and probably get away with it. Sam, over to you. Talk to us about your decision to step over into TT, your reasons behind it, and all that kind of malarkey. Off you go.
So, James and I, usually before we record, we have about 40 minutes where we should be recording, and what actually happens is we just sort of vent, and we'll be complaining about whether it's life or railway stuff that we don't necessarily want to say on the podcast, because we don't want to bum everyone out sometimes. And I'd hit a point where my previous layout, I really enjoyed building the fiddle yard. I loved having really long trains on it. But because I designed it all around this particular point, which was Port Creek, which was this bridge section, I built it in a particular way, which meant that to put it in my room, it had to stick out quite a bit. And what happened was I loved looking at it and I loved watching the trains go around, but eventually I started to get really annoyed because I felt like I could get more out of my loft, and my loft is a fairly decent space. And I'd sort of hit this rut, and James and I would talk, or one of us would go to a show, or one of us would see an announcement or something like that. And funnily enough, we'd mentioned a couple of times about TT and like the possibilities of what would be coming in the future. And it was just before we did the interview with yourself that it was really starting to take hold of me, because I'd seen a full HST set running on a layout down in Southampton. And I was like, oh, that does actually look quite smart. I hadn't seen a TT layout in the flesh other than the sort of the really small, cram it all into a really small space kind of layouts. And then we had the conversation with you, and I just sort of had this small realization. I was like, maybe this is something I want to look into. And James, being the sensible one of our podcast, James said that, yeah, I think it's something that you need to build on really slowly, maybe buy a couple of bits, make some plans and stuff like that. And then I saw Camelot at Ali Pally, and effectively in my head, I had it set. I was like, right, I'm doing this. And then I just hit this point where I was getting so wound up with, and I don't recommend anyone does this. I got to this point where I just decided I'm going to sell all my 00 gauge and just jump into this particular scale where, and James has mocked me for this on multiple occasions, my biggest thing, I love EMUs. I think they're great. I love all the electric multiple units that ran in the south. And there's obviously none available in TT right now. But I saw the 50 and I bought it from yourself. You appear to be the official dealer of the Model Rail Replacement podcast, and whether you want that title or not. And I saw it in person, and I just couldn't get over how much detail it had in comparison to the exact model I had in the Hornby 00 range. And it was sort of that was the light switch where I went, nah, this is it. I'm doing it. I'm going for the full thing. And then I decided to switch to TT.
Are you going to be doing a weathering video on that 50? Because I think that's really something that my TT subscribers, who are hopefully going to be becoming your subscribers, I think will be really interested to see, because I think you've got a good touch.
Thank you. That's nice to hear. I think James is going to be laughing. I think I can see him smiling at this one now. So James and I have done multiple videos on our separate channels about weathering and repaints and all these little bits and bobs. So if you do want to go and have a look at weathering and how to do it, you can watch all of these tutorials. And people tend to ask for weathering videos, and they ask and ask and ask. And the thing with a weathering video is you can do a layout update in 15 minutes and talk about what you've been up to. And a weathering video, let's say it takes you 2 hours to do the weathering. And that's by my quick standards, whereas James spends weeks weathering one wagon because he goes into all this detail. So you make all of this content, and then you have to spend hours editing it all together. And 9 times out of 10, those videos probably do about 10% of your normal 15-minute update video that you do.
Yeah, no, I know all that. What I want from you, okay, is go right. Peachy said I should weather this and show up a shiny 50, and go ta-da, and then just put on a little turntable and show us what you've done. I don't want to see you spraying it using a spray brush. I know how to weather. I'm not remotely interested in seeing how you do it. I've been doing it since I was your age.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, a little bit of a before and after, and you did show a picture of the 0050 all beautifully weathered with the Virgin 50, TT50 beside it. It'd be really nice to see you put that level of detail into that TT120 50, and then sort of show them side by side and just show off a little bit. Don't show us how you clean your gun out. I'm not interested. But show us your shinies. That's what we want to see.
I think when you mentioned there the 50, though, to me the 50 is actually possibly the best of the TT, certainly the diesels. I know I haven't got a Duchess, but the 50 to me is a superb logo. What they managed to put into it. I know the 66 is also excellent, but somehow to me the 50 is still a high mark as far as I'm concerned. It's also a phenomenally strong logo. It'll pull anything. It's got brilliant grip, and so yeah, we look forward to seeing what you do with it. Definitely.
Yes, all right. So let's get back on track to Emperor's Scaling Set. Talk to us about your thoughts and your choices and your layout design.
So one thing I've really struggled with is I love seeing other people's 00 gauge layouts where they have 4-track main lines and all these wonderful things going on. And where I have predominantly modelled my area down in Portsmouth, we have 2 lines and that's it, and the in and the out. And the only real way to be able to model something more on that scale is to aim towards London. And I spent ages trying to work out where would you do, because it's absolute mayhem. Probably from about Guildford onwards, you just start hitting 4 tracks, and they do so many different things, go off on various different branch lines. And then I was on the train into London, and I just sort of noticed that there's, as you go through Clapham Junction, I think it's still the busiest UK train station. I can't remember. James will know the answer. And it was just what you could have in there was great. And then just as you leave it, there's a sort of a Southern Railway line that runs alongside it, and then all of a sudden goes on a big overpass bridge and crosses over and heads towards Battersea and Victoria, or London Victoria. And that was sort of the cog in my head that made me go, my loft is difficult because I have the eaves of the loft, but I also have underneath my desk, there are storage doors that allow me to get in and store all my stuff in the loft. so I can't go down and build a fiddle yard with a helix or anything like that. So I have to sort of try and work out a way of keeping it all roughly on one level. And then with the flyover going over Victoria or to Victoria, that's when I went, okay, maybe this is where I can sort of do a loop that goes up an incline and then goes over, and then it sort of goes in a scenic break, and then you can bring the trains back on further down the line. And I think that's where James got the idea of it being a Scalextric set, because he asked me to colour in the lines so he could work out where they were all going, and it just made it look worse. Drawing layouts is not my forte.
I'll stick a screen grab of the initial plan that you and I. Well, you asked for my help because you can't. Because you have loads of work tech that you're not allowed to download anywhere onto. Yeah, you asked my opinion, and I quite enjoy making up. I've got files of hundreds of these layouts. It's a bit like building a layout, but not actually building a layout. So I've designed lots of different ones. So for me, it was just a cup of tea and a sit down, half hour, and pinged it over to you to see, is this what you're thinking of? So that was fun to do. I think you are changing a few bits around because you're going to try and squeeze in a platform or something.
Yeah. So initially the idea was it was going to be in between Clapham Junction and Vauxhall Station, which is the last station before you hit Waterloo. And then I was like, well, actually, what if I could squeeze a few platforms of Vauxhall in for a little bit of something different? So I've worked out that basically I can bring the trains onto that big main straight and maybe squeeze in 4 platforms technically, but 2 island platforms in the middle. And hopefully when they're done, they'll be able to accommodate a 6 loco train and six coaches and a loco sort of train formation on them. That's the plan anyway. And the idea is to leave enough space that if Pico ever decide to bring out a TT turntable, then I'd really like to put. I've always loved Old Oak Common Depot. I love the idea that you've got a turntable, which I think is quintessential to any railway, because of our good friend Thomas.
So do you think you might squeeze that on where that fiddle yard is? You might just in the middle of the loop, on the right hand side.
Yeah, I was thinking of, depending on the motor for the turntable, I was thinking of just sort of putting it just above it. Trying to get it there. If not, I've left enough space in my loft that I could turn it from an L-shaped layout into a U-shaped layout, but we'll have to see.
Okay, cool, awesome. Really looking forward to how you progress with that. I know you've been busy with the fiddle yard, and I think that's going to be your next video. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I'm a big believer that the fiddle yard needs to be the first thing you get sorted, because it's also one of the more frustrating bits. So if you can get that right, then you've got sort of a plain sailing to get to the next bit, which based on my previous layout is, I'd say it's a pretty firm thing.
Have you come across any particular issues? What point motors are you using for because you're using Pico track, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So point motors, surface mounted, underboard, what's your plans? If they're surface mounted, will they be seen in that fiddle yard? Are you not going to be doing any scenic work in the fiddle yard? Talk to us about that, or do you want to say that for your video?
No, it's all right. I don't mind talking about it. So fiddle yard is non-scenic. The idea is that I don't want anything to interfere with it, because it's quite a complex arrangement where you've got trains sort of going through it at fast speeds, or you've got trains going in and you need all the points to work. So I'm using the MTB MP1 point motors, which, if you've not seen them before, they're a very small unit. They work a little bit like a tortoise motor, but they're so much smaller. And if you're clever, you can surface mount them. So what I've done is I've effectively got some piano wire and made it into a U shape, rather than sort of mounting the point motors underneath the layout. And the joy of doing it that way is that I can put the point motors on the board, and I can adjust them and do fine little tweaks of them all on the top of the board, rather than having to lie underneath the layout. Which
are they a servo motor, or are they just a slow, or is it just a slow throw?
I believe they're a slow servo motor.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen them. But are you intending to use your control system? Will it be DCC, HM7000, DC? What do you going to run with?
So the initial plan is to make them DC analog. One thing I've always really enjoyed is being able to throw points like you're a signalman. I don't have the joy that James has had of being able to do it for quite some time.
We forgot to say, James, tell everyone what you do.
If you haven't guessed from the name, I'm a signalman. I'm a Western Signalman. Yes, I've worked the Western region from Swindon Panel. I've done Didcot when it was known as Swindon B. I've done Reading, all of the Reading area. I've done all the London area. There's only two parts of the room in TVSE. So the Thames Valley Signalling Centre I have never worked. That's the Bristol corner. I haven't worked the desks on Bristol, and I haven't worked the desk on Oxford either. But I have done a control job where I oversaw Oxford as part of the job. So
excellent. Thank you, James. Yes, I'm a signalman. Would have done, but
you asked, you got an answer.
Thanks, James. Thank you, Jim. Right, okay. Back over to Sam. Come on.
So I'm going to be doing analog at first. They're incredibly easy to use, and I'd previously wired up so that you can have lights on each channel, so you can see which point where the point's thrown, so you can see which line is the active line and stuff like that. But the good thing about wiring the points up like that is the MP1s are so simple wiring wise that you can put the 3 wires in and you can use them for an automation side of it, or using it with a DCC sort of iTrain style layout, and it's quite easy to change it over to that. So it's something there I can build an analog version for now, and then if I decide to go down the automation route later down the line, which has always been a dream of mine.
You mentioned iTrains then. So do you think this is something that actually you are seriously considering as because I know you were saying while you're doing your kind of like your night job, which is weathering and doing commissions, you rather like having your locos buzzing around and all that kind of stuff. So that automation side of something, is that something that you really do think is a goal?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything that's going to be happening anytime soon. But the way I'm designing the layout and with isolated sections and stuff like that, the plan is that eventually it will be an option. And the idea is that you can have something going into a fiddle yard, stops, and it automatically changes the points and something else comes out. So you just have this roulette of you might have 250s going on the both the fast lines and then a couple of freights, but they will just sort of switch over. So the 50 might stay on and then a HST might come out and stuff like that. And that's the inevitable plan, is to make it so that I can effectively set it up, leave it, do my little thing of weathering, and then can have the train sort of clickety-clacking in front of me, so that gives me that little bit of joy as well.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Greg, did you want to ask Sam any questions about the double O switchy thingy that we were discussing earlier?
Well, I think some extent you've kind of covered, I think, some of that, Sam. But I was wondering, the appeal of TT for you, apart from seeing that, Camelot and all the rest of it, was it how much you can get in the space? Was it the correct gauging? Was it something else? What was the draw away from double O to TT? Because you mentioned that you sold everything. That was a bold move. I was quite horrified to hear that, actually, because I've not done that. That's for sure. I sold some stuff, but by no means all of it.
So I'm very much an all-in kind of guy.
Just wait the day I have to say I told you so.
Please don't do that. I don't need that. I need a supportive friend at that time. So that there are some bits that I've kept, but they're not necessarily what were the big express trains that were on my old layout. I've got some stuff I'm going to have an exhibition layout that shows off my weathering whenever I go to shows. So I've got some of the sort of the smaller, like the Class 33s and the Speedlink train and stuff like that, just as examples to go around. So I've kept little bits like that. Being really honest, the true scale side of it wasn't I don't notice it. I'm really bad at stuff like that. And I don't pick up some of the details that I probably should. I look at something and I think that looks nice, and I'm content with that. It doesn't necessarily always have to be 100% right for me to be happy with it.
Yeah.
It very much was the biggest problem in my old layout was that for it to work, I kind of needed to do a whole loop around my loft. But I have my boilers up here, and it's very much a case of I never really wanted to cover the boiler, even with a lift in, lift out section, because I knew I'd forget to do it one day, and then an accident would happen or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I during my process where James was telling me to be careful, which apparently I ignored, I found some TT layout designs online where people were doing a 4-track main line in a sort of a 3-foot depth, and I was like, well, I've got way more space than that. So actually, if I wanted to do a 4-track mainline, I could do it with some better curves, so it was a little bit more gradual. I could maybe do some more exciting things than I previously had. The whole going up an incline thing was a little bit of inspiration from my 009 layout that I made at Christmas as well. And it just, I think it was the fact of I've always not appreciated N as a gauge or scale, not because I hate it, but I just feel like it doesn't, for me, it's never looked right, or it's never been appealing. It's too small. And it was only when I saw the TT stuff in person where I genuinely felt like actually this is a really nice scale and you can actually do a lot with it. And hopefully this layout proves that as well.
What's you're talking about running 50s, 37s, HSTs, an 08 in there maybe somewhere, I don't know, but what would you want to come out next that hasn't been announced?
Do you want the realistic answer, or do you want the answer that's a complete dream?
Oh, dreams are
complete
good.
dream. Complete dream. Yeah.
I feel modelling the London area, especially inside the M25. I think if you didn't have a 455, which is currently the longest surviving unit on the network as it stands today, I think having a few of those on the layout would be fantastic, because that is, especially in between Waterloo and Guildford, I think Guildford's the sort of the furthest reach for them. I think they're a lovely looking unit. So those who are listening who don't know what a 455 is, if you imagine it's a class 150, but it's got 2 cars in the middle, so effectively it's a 4-car version of a class 150. That's the simplest way I could say it. The difference is it's an electric unit, and they are kings inside the M25. They've been running for so long. They've run in so many different liveries that you can model pretty much anything in them.
Even toothpaste tube livery.
They especially ran in the toothpaste tube livery, and I mean, what's not to like about NSE livery? It's the best.
What's NSE?
So NSE is Network Southeast, which is another reason that James and I sort of connected as friends, because we both had an appreciation for Network Southeast back when James was building a sort of a Marylebone station layout that was focused on running the Hornby Class 423 in Network Southeast, and sort of like all the locos that could run with it. It's often referred to as the Aquafresh Express, because it's the one that sits with that giant bit of blue, some sort of white lines in between, and then a red stripe and a grey stripe at the bottom. And it's just, for when I was little, that was the livery that was running around all the time, and I've always appreciated it, and I've always thought it's fantastic.
Yeah. And just for clarity, of course I know what NSE is, seeing as I grew up in North London. That's just to help some other people out there who may not know what NSE is. Just a little aside. James, like me, do you sometimes have a little bit of a giggle when you hear people say things like, "Oh, I won't do TT. There's nothing in it," whereas, you don't really hear people say that about 009, when really in 009 there really is hardly anything around. There's appropriate stuff for 009, but there's never going to be a full nationwide range of stuff at 009 because it's not designed for that, is it?
No, it's it's amusing because I think you're in the early days of TT, and I think one of the advantages of the 3D prints that are out there, and as I said, when I'd look at the West Highland stuff, I tried to see if it's possible to get a class 27 or something like that, and I've seen that people do take those HST chassis and do put a class 25 or a 26 or a 27 body on it, and they've got themselves a new loco. And that's kind of similar to what 009 is, because there is some ready to run out there. Most of it is Festiniog based. There's very little beyond that. You've got the Baldwins, which are on the Ashover Light Railway and the Snail Beach, and they sort of cover areas like that, but there's not much else. Obviously, Rapido coming into the 009 market, I think, is great news. I'm very excited about that, and the fact that they are doing the same as what Pico have done and offering the chassis as its own thing, I think is a great idea, because that is essentially what is the 009 market. Is if you want an engine, you're probably going to have to build it yourself. If you want to model the Talaclin, obviously George Williamson's the best person to go watch how to model that, but you're going to have to buy a Thomas engine, and you're going to have to buy either a 4Ds kit or a Narrow Planet kit, and you're going to have to make that loco yourself.
So do you think people haven't ridiculed 009 the way they've ridiculed TT when it comes to availability of rolling stock and traction? Do you think it's because possibly in the long term there is very much the chance that there will be a lot more available in TT? Because let's face it, in the short period that it's been around, there has been quite a lot come from Hornby. I know compared to 00, it's a drop in the ocean still, but it's quite impressive the past 2 years of how much stuff has come out. Yeah. Do you wonder whether or not some people feel, it's odd to say this, but do you think they feel a little bit threatened by the fact that this new scale might actually, I think, I can't ever imagine it ever replacing 00, but it feels like some of them maybe feel like their scale won't be taken seriously because there's this true scale gauge system that's come out.
Yeah, it's I think it's a numbers game, isn't it? Whereas 009 is very limited in what you can and can't get. There's only so many narrow gauge locomotives out there. There's only so much what people want to model. When you look at TT, I think people, and maybe it's the trap that I fell in when I came straight into it. It's like, I'm going to do this, and this, and oh, hang on a minute. I suppose the best way to look at it is when Hornby first started bringing out their 00 models many years ago, when it was Hornby 00, when it was Triang. There was lots of samples out there, but there wasn't so many engines out there to produce as there is today. You had your top link steam engines and that, but diesel's only just coming through, and now we've got such a wide range of what people want to model. It's keeping everyone happy and everyone satisfied, isn't it? But I can't imagine. I think TT's here to stay. I think it's proved itself as a worthy scale. I think you're right. I think people are a little concerned about it. Maybe they're worried that production slots for what they want won't come through, or sort of things like that. But give it 10 years time, and like you say, the rate that Hornby have produced models in TT, because I think that is the way to win the game, isn't it? You've got to get as much out as you can to get people into it, because if we were still sat here right now and we still only had the A3, the A4 and the OH Hunter and some Mark 1 coaches and one or two vans, not many people are going to be wanting to stick around for TT. Hang on a minute, it's been for 3-4 years and this is what we've got, but we're not there. We've got 66s, we've got Freightliner wagons to go with, we've got the coal hoppers, and now we've got the EWS 66 coming. Well, now we've got something that can pull the coal hoppers. It's just, I think it's a game of patience, and if you've got the patience, I think TT will reward you eventually. So I think it is quite laughable when people ridicule it.
Yeah. Small little fact check there. We are not quite at 3 years for Pico. We're at 2 years and 11 months for Pico. When Pico and Hellion announced in June of 22, and then it was October 22 in Hornby. So Hornby not even 2.5 years yet. And for example, there's now either available either in the UK or in the Arnold range, or the stuff that's now available for pre-order. There's 9 variations of the 66. So, and some of that French stuff, I think, is actually cross-channel operational as well. So, yeah, there's a phenomenal amount.
I think what you said there for 00, there is perhaps more resistance there, but I suspect what the long-term fallout from this, there will be far more impact on British N than on 00. I think that's, in a way, the fact that it's that bit smaller scale, I think it emphasizes the mismatch gauge scale thing more, because it's British N is not true to scale. And I think that TT coming in with really good, modern designed chassis that are reliable, I think N may be the one that actually ends up being the longer term casualty. I do have an affection for N, I got to be honest. I came back to some of the stuff I've seen on N. It looks brilliant, some of the scenic work that can be done on that scale. But I do wonder if that's actually where the thing will be. Sorry, Sam.
No, I just wanted to sort of agree with what you're saying. I feel that a lot of people gave Hornby a lot of stick when they announced the TT stuff, but like, it kind of feels like I'm bashing N, and I'm not trying to. But nobody seems to have sort of picked on Bachmann / Graham Farish for them doing 2 scales, or even 3-4 scales now that they're doing 009 and NG7. But people gave Hornby a hard time for switching and sort of adding TT120 to their range. And it's sort of, I mean, at least I didn't hear of anyone doing it. And I feel like it's a weird one where everybody was sort of praising Bachmann for one thing, but like now it feels like people are finally sort of switching on to the fact that actually TT is really good. But I felt like people were just really hard on Hornby doing the TT120 back in the day, and it's kind of like, well, other brands have done different scales and gauges. Why can't Hornby? And do you know what? They've done this really well.
But it's always been easy to hate on the red box.
Mm. Yeah. I think that's it, isn't it? It's Hornby have had such a reputation and bashing for many years leading up to TT that it was just too easy for people to just jump in on that. But yeah, I think it sounds right. It's a bit like I said, Rapido just announced they've come into 009 market. No one has now gone, oh, why are Rapido making 009 models? Why are they doing that? Why aren't they sticking to 00 gauge? Everyone's gone, hey, brilliant.
Because Rapido, like every other business that's in this business, there's very few. There's a few little charitable people like Wessex who have brought out a little 7-plank in their charity range, because obviously Wessex wagons support the Yeovil. Is it Yeovil? The historic railway. I think it's Yeovil. I might have got that wrong. It will come along the bottom if I've got that wrong. But this idea that these businesses shouldn't be trying to make money is a little bit naive. If they see something selling, why wouldn't they make something if people want to buy it? It's as simple as that, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah. It's the best way to keep your business alive, really, isn't it? We'll give it
right, Sam, you got anything else for us?
He likes to get his pound of flesh.
Or would you rather we ask you questions rather than you come up with content? You're so used to being a producer in the background and letting James get to do it all for you.
James does all the homework. I just do all of the editing. I just do the spelling and grammar check at the end. That's all I do. Right.
Well, I've got a question for you. I've got a question for you both, actually. And it's possibly more pertinent to James. But We have a common friend, that is Tom Marshall from Buggles Kelly Station, who a number of us now know. I first met him on the TMC YouTube channel, the challenge thing that we did. He's a cracking lad. He was very entertaining. He is entertaining, but also it's not all just jokes. The guy does, him and his missus do work ever so hard. They go to up and down the country almost every weekend, whilst also trying to complete commission orders for all the various bits and bobs that he does. And it's not as quite as simple as I think people might think, particularly the fact that he has to find ways of paying for the rights for some of these things that he does. But are we all? I know both me and Mac. I'm pretty sure Mac has. We're supporting our friend by pre-ordering a Buggles Kelly Station a 7-plank wagon in TT gauge. Have you? Can you two boys hold your hands to your hearts and say that you've done the same?
Oh, I've supported
Dear friend,
with his signal boxes, doing a video of how to paint it, and then sticking it on a Google review, and even AI recognises I did that for him. So that's
Sam.
I let him do my adverts as a charitable donation.
I did like the last one, the one where he says he didn't, but everybody else thinks he did. Do an impersonation of Craig from Iron Horse Railways, where he goes, do you like comedy? And he goes, no, that's why I listen to the Model Rail Replacement podcast. That's us just in tears.
You there? Oh, me? Do you like model railways? Yes, that's why I'm listening to the Model Rail Replacement podcast. Do you like comedy? No, that's why I'm listening to the Model Rail Replacement podcast. If you like model railways and comedy, head over to BugglesKellyStation.com. From Dad's Army to Will Hay, Laurel and Hardy to the island of Sodor. Add a comedy cameo to your model railway today. All right, thanks. Buggles Kelly Station. You won't be wasting your time.
It's your best one that you guys have done yet. I think, doesn't it? Tom does some of your voiceovers as well, doesn't he?
Yeah. So my original advert for Emperors Path was basically me talking to myself doing an outrageously terrible West Country accent. And when Tom came on, something that didn't make it to the show was how much him and James just absolutely ripped me apart and just sat there doing the voice the whole time, to the point where we were like, well, why don't we get Tom to come on and be the new... I think James came up with a name, effectively called him Chester Worselton III. But so now Tom is the official voice of Ches, as we call him. And look at that. I didn't expect that to be a phrase that gets shouted at me at shows as much as it does. Rather than...
What's the phrase?
Look at that.
Look at that. What was there's an expensive one as well, isn't there? But that's expensive, isn't it? Or is it? You must know your own phrases.
Oh, that must cost a fortune.
That must cost you a fortune. That's it. That's the one I like.
It's been so long since I did my own advert that I genuinely had forgotten what it was. But I became a caricature effectively, and then Tom just does such a good thing. And I think we don't necessarily say this, and he hates it when I compliment him, so he's going to be really embarrassed now. But James writes pretty much the scripts for each ad, because he has the comedy side of it where he can write these things, because I can come up with rough ideas, but he has James's love of Alan Partridge really helps with the comedy that goes into the ads. So James does actually write the scripts for the ads. Tom performs them, and then I make money off them.
We don't see a penny.
No bitterness there at all, was there, in that?
Right, guys, I think this has been fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Listen, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you to come onto our little chat along here. Hopefully, some of the Peachy Massive will go and have a peek at what you're now doing, Sam, and what you have done in the past, James. Guys, please comment on their videos. Tell James to get his backside into gear and to start TT again. Keep Sam on the righteous path, so you make sure that he actually finishes this layout and doesn't just rip it up. If anybody else hasn't already gone along and had a look at Mac Train's layout, which you've changed your name, and I don't like it. What's it changed from?
It's now Tanfield Terrace.
It was Tanfield Tor, and it sounded righteous.
Tanfield Tor, but there wasn't much by way of scenery. You need a big lump of hill or rock or something to get away with Tor in the name.
Right,
and it was a reference to Cheetor, an N-scale layout from 90 somewhere. It was a brilliant layout. You can still find it on YouTube. As that was a kind of a nod to that originally, but I went for Terrace because it's going to be more kind of urban scenes. So
you're going to have a load. You're going to have a load of the tenements, aren't you?
Yeah, that's
it. It should be Tanfield Tenements.
It could have been Tanfield Tenement. The idea was looking for a double T to kind of pun off the scale. So,
but there's another partial Peachy design now in construction. And I'm quite intrigued about how quickly actually you've moved yours on. I know you've got a lot to go. It's good seeing it, but it's good seeing it running. I know.
It's always encouraging when things start to run and it doesn't all derail at every single bend. So, but yeah, I'm quite pleased with it so far. I must be honest. I feel it's kind of coming together. A lot was just in my head rather than scaled out. I'm not entirely sure I'm going to get all the buildings to work. Might be a bit of 3D printing involved there and some of my own design work, but I'm looking forward to it. So please do come along and check out Mac Trains. Thank you.
We'll get some scratch build tips from young James.
Yes.
How's your cassette system working out?
I haven't done much with it beyond it sat there, to be quite honest. So it seems to be fine. It seems to be fine.
Have you operated with it? Have you actually operated with it?
Yeah. It runs. I'm not terribly happy with power.
We've never seen it on video, so I was wondering whether
I just haven't bothered showing it, but no, it does function. It functions just sort of literally a plank of timber and 2 lengths of Pico Flexi track in, and I can lift it out, flip it around, and put it back in again. So it works fine. But I'm not, like I say, the power pickup I'm not entirely pleased with yet. It's kind of it's actually a couple of brass contacts from inside an old 00 power clip. I pulled that out and used that, and so they kind of touch up against each other when you push it in, and that makes your power connection.
You might have to put your hands in your pocket and actually buy something designed.
I'm Scottish. I don't put my hand in my pocket. Come on.
This Heath Robinson strips of tin foil.
Pretty much. If there's a cheap way to do it, I'll find the cheap way to do it, and I'm quite pleased with that.
Right, great, guys. You guys have been brilliant. For Peachy, all really focusing on at the moment is my Rail 200. I'm videoing what I'm building, and I'm going to do a sort of like it might be a 2-part overview as I build, all speeded up, so that you kind of get that quite nice journey to then a finished, superb, excellent, very high class model at the end of it. Do you know how high class it's going to be? It's going to have single foot fine scale code 55 at the correct lengths, all the little bolting brackets together. That's how bad I'm going to get at it. It's not the sort of thing that I would want to do more than 2.5 foot of, but it's been quite enjoyable doing 2.5 foot of bespoke track work. Okay. But those people who make full length fine scale layouts, I can only presume that they have nothing outside of making track, basically. And of course, I'm doing a kitchen floor. That's and it's been quite a big kitchen floor. Right, guys.
Fine scale kitchen floor. They've done exactly to scale as well, so it's perfect.
No, I'm a little less focused on the quality of that, as long as it doesn't lift up and bubble up anymore. Right.
Don't tell Mrs. Peachy that.
Can we have a goodbye from everybody? So, James,
Yeah.
I'd say goodbye and not just a wave goodbye. I want to hear about your YouTube channel. Come on. Wake up. Yeah, you look like you're lying on a couch.
I did tell you I wanted a sofa or a chaise long in here at some point. It's just lie down and watch the trains go around. But yeah, no, thank you very much for having us on. It's been an absolute pleasure. But yeah, if people do want to find me, then as you say, it's Western Signalman on YouTube. Currently going from a 009 build, but there is plans for a TT120 build for those that are interested. And as you say, there is some videos if you search around in my history. And obviously, if you want to hear more about mine and Sam's adventures, you can always listen to us on the Model Rail Replacement podcast on a Monday morning from 7.
And Sam?
If you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram at Emperors_Path, where I post most of my updates. Apparently, I'm now committed to updates on YouTube as well, my TT120 build. And alternatively, you can find... We've done YouTube, we've done Instagram. That's weird. It feels... Oh, I'm also on Facebook now, because apparently that's how people like to talk to me. So yeah, you can also find me, the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, on Facebook as well.
Excellent. Mac, I know you're desperate to get yourself a wee bit of night nurse or a whiskey and off to bed because you're feeling poorly. Right?
Well, put it this way, it wasn't your company that kept me up all this time. I was quite happy listening to the other chaps, but no. Thanks, guys. It's great to get the chance to see you both and chat away, and I've enjoyed that. And I was going my mind off feeling sorry for myself a wee bit. So there we go. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. We're really looking forward to what all three of you continue to produce on YouTube and help inspire a lot of the new people who are coming to this hobby but maybe don't have the experience that you guys have had. So again, thank you very much. For me, it's just a good night, and don't forget to like and subscribe. You know where I am because you're here. But take care. Cheery bye.
And that's all there is to tell. I'll be on my way now, sir. I've got urgent business in the south. I have to meet a man at Melbourne Junction.